Hey everybody, today I want to talk about exercise addiction, what it is, why it's part of many eating disorders, and what we can do to overcome it. Now, obviously, there are many health benefits to working out regularly. It's good for your cardiovascular system, it can relieve stress, and it releases feel-good chemicals like endorphins. But just like anything, it's best in moderation. And when exercise is done excessively, it can come with some dangerous health complications of its own. So let's jump into what exercise addiction is. Simply put, it's an unhealthy obsession with physical fitness and working out, and we feel helpless to stop even if we know it's not good for us or is out of control. Now, it's that second portion, the part about not being able to stop, that differentiates this from, say, professional athletes or Olympians and marathon runners. Sure, those people could have exercise addiction, but it's not just the amount of exercise we do that's an indicator of it. It's much more than that. And while many researchers have looked at this issue and used varying criteria to define it, today I want to use the definition that's most closely aligned with the DSM-5 criteria for behavioral addiction, which, just FYI, in and of itself, it was modeled after the criteria for substance dependence. So that just gives you an idea of where these criteria and symptoms come from. And also, I'll link the research article that I'm pulling this from in the description if you want to check it out and learn more. But they describe the symptoms as follows. Number 1, tolerance, which is really just the increasing amount of exercise that we're going to need to do in order to feel the same desired effect, like that runner's high or the, buzz or sense of accomplishment that we get. Number 2, withdrawal. So in the absence of the exercise, like if we can't exercise in the way that we think we should or want to, the person with exercise addiction is going to feel negative effects of that, like anxiety, irritability, restlessness, and sleep problems. I would even argue that whatever we're trying to numb out from with the over-exercise, when we can't do it, those things are going to come up. Number 3, lack of control, which we kind of talked about earlier, right? Like you can't stop even if you want to. So they're defining this as unsuccessful at attempts to reduce exercise level or cease exercising for a certain period of time. So we just can't stop. Next is what they're calling intention effects. And that's when we're unable to stick to an intended routine. So let's say we are like, I'm going to go running for 30 minutes or I'm going to do yoga for an hour. We will always exceed the amount of time that we intended to devote to exercise, or we'll go beyond the intended amount, like number of reps and stuff like that. The next symptom or criteria is time. So a great deal of our time is spent preparing for, engaging in, and recovering from the exercise, which moves on to a reduction in other activities, right? If we're spending a shitload of time on our exercise and we're spending a lot of energy and we're always overdoing it, then other things, we're not going to be able to accomplish other things, right? So as a direct result of our overexercise, our social life, maybe work or school, whatever occupationally we're doing, or recreational activities are going to potentially be stopped or occur less often. And the next criteria is continuance, which is continuing to exercise despite knowing that this activity is creating problems for you. Just like we talked about earlier, even if we know it's not healthy or not good, or it doesn't even feel good maybe anymore, we have that inability to stop. And if we think about it, we can imagine a lot of reasons why someone would become addicted to exercise. First, it's a distraction. Easy, right? We already knew that. 2, it can make us feel good, at least sometimes, right? Like all the release of those feel-good chemicals and endorphins and things like that. And 3rd, it's something our society supports, maybe a little too much. And it's not a big jump from that for us to understand why those of us with eating disorders can struggle with it as well. Since we all know eating disorders are just coping skills for something bigger that's going on. And exercise, we know, can reduce stress and sometimes make us feel good. So of course we would use it, right? Not to mention that it still feeds into our eating disorder voice by giving us a false sense of control. And it can also make us think that we are achieving something worthwhile, right? Eating disorders have these lists of things that we're supposed to do or, criteria we're supposed to meet. And it's always changing, right? The goalposts are always moving farther and farther away. But exercise can give us that false sense that we are moving closer to those goalposts. Now, I know that you most likely assumed that those who are addicted to exercise are underweight, or when we're talking about eating disorders, they're on the more restrictive side of the eating disorder spectrum. Well, I'm here to tell you that that is completely wrong. Eating disorders come in all shapes and sizes, and exercise can be a way that those of us who binge, quote unquote, make up for that binge. I've always considered exercise as a form of purging because I, in my practice, define purging as us finding a way of getting out the food that we don't want to stay in our bodies. So this can be done through actually throwing up, abusing laxatives, or through over-exercise. And many of my eating disorder patients, both the restrictive and the binge types, struggle to build a healthy relationship with exercise because it's so closely linked to our body. And when we have an eating disorder, we aren't healthfully able to connect to our bodies, right? Not to mention that many of my eating disorder patients have been through a trauma in their lifetime. Not all, but a lot of them. And trauma, if you yourself have been traumatized, I think you can attest to the fact that it can make that connection to our body even more difficult. So now that we understand what exercise addiction is and why it's often linked to eating disorders, how do we overcome it and go on to have a healthy relationship with exercise? Is that even possible? Well, yes, it is. And my first tip is to learn how to be in your body and actually feel it. I know it's hard and it's going to take some practice, but we can get there. And it can help to start out by trying some light stretching and consider, if I'm trying to touch my toes, where do I feel that stretch? What if it's too much? Is it not enough? Or does it feel good? Think about those things. Kind of tap in. And one of the tricks that we use in DBT is called the white light. And you imagine that this white circle of light is coming down and starting above your head and working its way down and around your entire body, kind of going around you. And as it passes each area very slowly, notice how that area feels. If any muscles there are very tense, and if they are, see if you can relax them. And do this all the way from the tippity top of your head to your toes. And it can help with that brain-body connection because getting a bit more comfortable with our bodies can help us stay in them more, listen to them more easily, and hopefully heal the relationship because let's be honest, we all have been abusing our bodies and not listening to them all the time and all that they tell us, right? We're not always receiving those messages, and this can be really, really healing. My second tip, learn how to play again. I'll even be honest that I need a little more play in my life where it's just goofy, nonsensical, not geared toward any, final destination. So have fun with exercise like a child does. Can you join a softball or soccer team? Maybe you can play in the park with your or your friends' children. Maybe play with your cat or your dog. And summer's coming. Maybe we can go jump on a slip and slide or a trampoline. Or go paddleboarding, maybe try kayaking with a friend. Moving our body just to have fun and enjoy others and the outdoors is important when we're trying to overcome the urge to overdo it. Just make sure that when we are having fun, we aren't competing with anyone, and even ourselves, right? No competition. It's just play. My next tip is when re-engaging with exercise at a gym or a studio, only sign up for group classes. This ensures that there's a warm-up, there's the time for the class, and then a cool down. And if we sign up for like a 30-minute class or an hour-long class, it's only going to last that long. We won't be able to keep adding in reps or laps or time onto the end of our workouts like we used to. It kind of holds us accountable. So we start when the teacher starts and we end on time with everyone else. Not to mention that workout classes can actually be a great place to meet new people and be social instead of what those of us with exercise addiction tend to do is shut down, numb out, and exercise until we just can't even think anymore. My next tip is to please see a therapist and a dietitian. And also just get regular physicals from your primary doctor. When we are working to heal from exercise addiction or an eating disorder, it's really important that we have a licensed team there to support us. There's a lot we can do on our own, but to ensure that our body and brain are healed, we're gonna need some professional help. And there's always a reason for our unhealthy coping skills, and working with a therapist can help you uncover that so that you can overcome it and heal. That way, the reason that you're addicted to exercise, right? The root of the root, whatever's driving it, we can work to heal that and then it won't be there anymore. Therefore, neither will the urge to overexercise or engage in that unhealthy behavior. And my final tip, never, I said never, work out alone. Working out alone gives us too many opportunities to overdo it or push past our limit. And that's why I recommended taking classes or playing with friends and family instead. And I know with COVID this can be tricky, but get outside. Go for a hike with a friend or something that you feel safe doing. Until we get a handle on our relationship with working out, let's have people around us to hold us accountable and ensure that we stop at a reasonable time and don't get carried away. I hope you found that helpful. Have you personally struggled with exercise addiction or known someone who has? What did you find helpful when you were working to overcome it? Please share any additional thoughts and resources down in those comments, and I will see you next time. Bye.